Welcome to the Team Teach podcast. I'm Clare, and in each episode you'll find me talking with an expert guest to learn more about behaviour. We squeeze a lot into each episode. You'll listen to the latest thinking in behaviour, continue your professional development with our book recommendation, and then I'll send you away with 3 practical tips you can use in your setting. I'm really excited today because I'm joined by Amanda Brady-Fujita, and we are talking about provision of training to frontline support workers working in the disability sector. So yeah, we're really focusing around that topic today. I wondered, Amanda, if you could tell the listener a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for having me. So as you've said, my name's Amanda and I work as a trainer for Team Teach. But my previous experience is registering as a nurse, working in mainstream hospitals. I then moved across into the aged care, residential aged care, particularly working in the secure dementia wings. And then from there, I moved across into disability. So probably for about the last 10 years plus, working with some of those potentially challenging behaviours and bring a little bit of experience around that.
Yeah, amazing. And I was really chuffed actually to look at your spread of experience, and you've got so much experience in different areas of care. And I think this topic today is really important. We chatted a bit off air about the kind of provision of training available, but that's our real, focus today. But I wondered if you could hold the topic in mind and think about what you wish you knew then that you know now about this topic around training.
That how critical the training is actually. There's a misconception that just because you've got a certificate 3 or a certificate 4, or you've completed online training modules that tells you how to work in the sector, the reality of the sector is completely different. And the training that Team Teach provides is very, very relevant. Admittedly, it does come at a cost to organisations, which sometimes they can be hesitant to outlay, but actually without providing that training to staff, we continue to lose staff from the sector. So really just how important that training is for staff.
Yeah, and I know I'm a trainer over in the UK. Amanda's based in Australia, but I know here where I do training that actually it's a surprise sometimes how lacking some staff can be. And for me, when we're thinking about complex needs, disability sector, it's not the kind of one and done type of training where you just do one few hour session and then you're done. It's actually having this kind of progressive, ongoing, like set training. Is that your experience as well, that sometimes training kind of lacks that progression and carries on?
Absolutely. And I think under the NDIS over here, there are mandatory training modules that need to be completed by a support worker before they even start. But actually that can be seen as a little bit of a tick and flick activity, because they simply need to complete the module, which, let's face it, it can actually be just left on play in the background, get to the end, answer a couple of questions and get the certificate to prove you've completed that training. But the thing is, through training sessions that I've run, numerous different things will come up, and support workers, or even regardless, not necessarily just support workers, across the whole sectors that we deliver training to, people will come up to me at the end and say, wow, I wish I had this at the beginning, or I wish this was actually part of the TAFE studies or the uni studies, because it's got so many more skills and knowledge that we actually need for working on the front line in the sector.
Yeah, there's so many skills that are needed in that sector. And it's interesting that you say that about the kind of, I don't know, accessing some online modules and just doing a kind of tick sheet at the end. And I think since COVID over here, for sure, like that seems to be like, one of the main mechanisms of training that I suppose staff really miss out on, kind of learning together, collaboration, all of those things that we sort of would hope for in a training session.
Absolutely. And generally what will happen through those training sessions is there's a lot of conversations that are generated. Someone will speak of, oh, I've had this happen, experienced this before. And then, of course, from there, conversation can flourish. But through that, it's helping embed some of the skills, the knowledge. You just don't get that from an online platform, basically.
Yeah, yeah. It's you're working in silo, aren't you? Essentially, using those online platforms, although they have utility, maybe not as a replacement for some of the other training mechanisms. When we say that everyone can benefit from Team Teach training, we really do mean everyone. Our in-house training puts the emphasis on the unique needs of your setting and creates a consistent approach to behaviour across your entire organisation. Head over to the Team Teach website to find out more. I'm also wondering, Amanda, I know less about Australia and the sector over there, and particularly the disability sector, and kind of what training should be provided. So I'm just wondering, what are some of the challenges in staff working in or on the front line and not having that training?
I think first and foremost is there's a misconception that working in the sector is really, really easy. Yes, you might get lucky to get one of the easier clients, so to speak, that simply requires some community access supports to go do shopping, to go to the movies, to go have lunch out with friends. And those are absolutely nice and easy. But then it may be that even with one of those easier clients, something might happen out whilst they're out in the community. There may be a trigger, there may be something unforeseen, and all of a sudden it's done a complete 360, and we're no longer enjoying tea and cake, but actually now we've got some really complex and challenging behaviours. But I think to take it back around to what you originally asked, it's that misconception that you can get your certification, get a job easily in the sector, be allocated a client, think that that's what you're doing, and then it can do a complete 360. And I've heard of stories of young people or even experienced people leaving the sectors after just one shift, because there is a huge staff shortage across the sector, and therefore it's not taking anyone and everyone, but it almost is taking anyone or everyone, so we can fill the shifts, but then we can have some of those experiences.
But yeah, it's interesting hearing that reflected in Australia, because in the UK, the sector really struggles to fill jobs, or more prevalent to what you were saying, actually to retain staff is incredibly difficult. And I wonder if that is to do with quality training. I also wonder, from what you said as well, as whether it's the job's kind of missold, because maybe having the training prepares you for there being some difficulties and gives you that confidence that you could deal with it. I don't know your thoughts
on that. No, absolutely. I have actually had, when I've been running training sessions, and we were always open with an introduction and go around the room, and you might be very lucky to have some people that say, I've been working for this company for 6 years, 5 years, 2 years. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you'll have someone who will say, I'm brand new to this company and I'm brand new to the sector. Then during the training, as they're hearing the more experienced people discuss some of those situations, incidents, critical incidents that have happened, they actually are very taken aback. And I've actually had a session where they haven't returned and said, you know what, I'm out before we've even started. So I think it's all well and good to do tick modules online and to say, yes, when someone's escalating, you just stay calm and you just do these things. But the reality can be extremely confronting. And it can actually lead to some very major injuries as well, which is why I suppose I get a little bit frustrated when organizations often say to me, no, we don't need any training. We do all of that, because it has a huge flow-on effect. If you don't train, then you can't retain staff, but then you've got the increase in workers' compensation, insurance costs, and all those other things that go with it. And yet, if you just train, it's not going to fix everything, obviously, but it can have a huge positive impact and help reduce all of those other things.
Oh, it really does. I see it as a trainer, but I also see it on the other side. I work I guess on the front line, but working directly with autistic individuals, and I see staff that come in who are quite new. They're probably about to do their kind of induction training, and I see the kind of maybe nervousness or reluctance. Reluctance sounds harsh, actually, but yeah, just maybe not that confident yet. And then I see the difference when they start to go on the program of, they would do team teach training in this service, and then they'd go on and do, different topics, trauma informed practice and positive behavior support in different ways. And you see the shift in them. And of course, some of that is the experience of being, in the job, working with the individuals. But I do think that a big part of it is having that confidence built that if something did happen, which in my service, actually, it's kind of likely that it will happen, that I could do something about it. And I think what it sounds like of what you're describing is that staff are going almost with a blindfold in to the work that they're doing, and not having that confidence grown before they get going. And I'm sure some people get on okay, right, and they sort of find their feet, but it does sound like it's a real challenge.
Absolutely. I just wanted to circle back around to what you said about that lack of confidence, particularly
Mm.
when we're working with clients on the autism spectrum. And I will often say this, and even back as a service manager, I would say to support staff during that induction process. Obviously, we provided training and all those sorts of things. But the thing is, an autistic client will pick up the minute you walk in the door. If you are not confident, if you're trying to fake it, if you're trying to bluff your way through it,
Yeah.
they will know. And then from then on, you'll be their target. So it is genuinely about having the skills and the knowledge, but also having the confidence and the competence to be able to obviously support the individuals that are in our care. And I think it all still comes back around to the provision of training for staff.
Yeah, that provision of training, the I kind of would call it in my service, like that menu of training that's available for everyone is so important. But I'm wondering, sort of, I mean, this is like me not even going off piece, but I guess it's just me trying to fathom the Australian system a bit more. But I'm just wondering sort of how it's kind of got how it's got, and how I, is it kind of regulated to have certain training in certain things, or?
So I think that's also another area where I get a little bit frustrated, because I do attend many conferences or expos and networking sessions. And in those sessions or at those expos, there are a lot of disability service providers there. And I will always ask them around, and this is just maybe going a little bit off topic as well, but it's about asking the providers around training. I will always ask, if you're supporting clients that have positive behaviour support plans and restrictive practices, what do you do in terms of training? They'll often say to me, we don't need to do training because they've done the NDIS worker orientation modules. They've already done that, or they've done online training through eTrainU, and even though it's not mandated yet, hopefully it's going to come in as a minimum requirement to have a certificate 3 or a certificate 4. They don't actually need it. It's not mandated yet. So we're still waiting for that to come in. But particularly if there's positive behaviour support plans, that means a client you're working with generally will have some sort of challenging behaviours, or behaviours that can be seen to be challenging. Particularly if there's restrictive practices, and if it includes anything like physical restraint or physical techniques, then absolutely training has to be provided, because that's coming back to safety and how we keep ourselves safe and how we keep the individuals safe. But quite often when I'm speaking to these service providers, they'll say, no, we don't need to do that because it's done by the plan writer. Yes, the plan writer does have to provide training, but these plans can be 50 plus pages long. So it can include the full history and behaviours and strategies, and it should all be about increasing quality of life and keeping everybody safe, absolutely. But the thing is that that generally service providers will say is, no, we don't need to provide because the plan writer is providing that training. But actually it's under NDIS guidelines that the implementing service provider has the legal responsibility to provide training around physical restraints, if that's in there, for example.
Yeah, that's really kind of, I know, fascinating to hear. I guess let's say the variance in the training offered by different providers, because I'm sure there is a variance. And it's also interesting, I don't know if you find this as a trainer as well, that where I'm working with services that will have a service user with a plan that they might have to use restrictive practices. I think one of the great things about running a team teach course, and hopefully any provider would do this as well, where we're really looking at skilling people up. Should there be an emergency? Should we have to use a restrictive intervention as a last resort, reasonable, proportionate and necessary, all of, within our legal frameworks. But then actually one of the outcomes that I find, hopefully on the course, is that you train people to use these techniques, but because we focus so much on what we'd call the 95%, so non-restrictive practices, de-escalation, positive behaviour support, that a weird outcome of the course is, here are some skills in physical techniques, and then actually we're showing you other ways where we hope that you won't have to use them. So it's kind of, it's interesting, isn't it, that on these type of courses that we're training skills, but actually the main focus is around the de-escalation, understanding the behavior triggers, all of those aspects.
But that's absolutely what we should be aiming for, is that we embed all of those foundational skills, as you say, what we focus on as the 95%, and actually implementing some of those broader concepts. Because I know that even in that 95%, it could be something as simple as humor, or something as simple as the tone of our voice that can completely change an outcome. But if we can really focus on that 95%, get that right, then we should be avoiding any kind of physical intervention, which is absolutely, as you've said, what we want to aim for. We don't want hands-on to be the first approach. We want to get all that other stuff right. However, if something does escalate and we do need to be hands-on, and yes, of course, we incorporate last resort, least restrictive, all those good legal frameworks that we should be, but then you don't want someone caught up in the moment where they do have to be hands-on and not know what they need to do, because then they're going to cause further injury or trauma or damage. So it is very much, I'd rather someone have the skills and know what they need to do if they get up to that point. But ideally, we don't get up to that point because we've got all that foundational stuff right first. And actually, I just met with a school very recently up in North Queensland, and they said that since they've implemented Team Teach, they've already seen a 25% reduction in incidents in only a 12-month period since they've rolled it out to the whole organisation. So really, really beneficial.
It is, and I suppose, when you were saying before about service providers using the person that's written the plan to do the training, the danger with that is that actually the person doing the training just focuses on the physical and is like, well, okay, we've got these restrictive practices on this plan, we better just do that. And then I suppose we're missing this whole opportunity of understanding the kind of the rest of the things going on, because we can't take away all risk. I think that's in a nutshell what you were describing there. So we have to prepare for the unknown or the known. But there's also this idea, and this happens in quite a lot of the services that I train, that there's just this tiny bit of risk. Like I think in one of the services I train, it's adult services, I think they have 0.01 in occurrence of assaults on staff. Like it's absolutely minute, but because that risk is there, it is a foreseeable risk that
Absolutely.
incident could happen again. So we don't go, well, it's a really low risk and unlikely to happen, so let's not do those skills, let's just do a 3-hour online module. Like we have to make sure that people have those skills, because we work with individuals that are unpredictable and can be risky.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's another frustration over here, is that this type of training, it's purely optional. And of course, given that it's optional, the other part of my role for Team Teach is the account management side, and often contacting organizations to speak about training. The response will be, well, we don't have budget, or we don't need, because we never have any incidents. But actually, and then it could be that I'll hear from that same customer 6 months later, because now they're being reactive to something that's happened, rather than previously being proactive, where we could have avoided that. And now they do need it, but something's happened, and that could have been a major critical incident that's happened, that now they're in a panic, and now we need to implement the training. So I just wish training of the Team Teach style that we have is not purely optional, because it can help a lot of organizations and staff.
Yeah, I mean, that's the title and kind of what we talked about off air, but it is that quality provision of training, but not, and I really liked what you said there, that it's not reactive, because actually it's really difficult in a reactive sense to unpick incidences. You can't take away the trauma, that the injuries that staff could have sustained as a result of an incident, or even just witnessing incidences as a member of staff has a huge impact. Hearing about incidences, vicarious trauma, sure you'll know all about that in the services that you've worked in. And yeah, there are just so many parts of it that really impact frontline staff. So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me that we wouldn't have a provision of training that kind of meets the needs of the clientele, that we're working with. Like, my logical brain is like, this doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. I agree. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense, which is why I think I get very frustrated when, trying to call customers and talk about the training, and you just get the no, we're not interested, no, we don't need, no, we've already done the modules, or we've done this, or we've done that. So yeah,
Yeah.
part of those frustrations.
Yeah. It's been a really fascinating chat, and I really like, particularly when I'm interviewing people in a different country as well, in Australia, just hearing about how the different sectors work. So thank you so much for that. And I just wondered, as usual, if you could just finish with 3 top tips.
At the end of the day, the return on investment for training is invaluable. I don't think you can put a price tag on that. And then I think absolutely it is essential to build staff confidence and competence, so that they can go out there and do their jobs and know that they're going to be safe. And obviously the individuals that we're supporting are safe too. And of course, I absolutely want to reiterate that Team Teach training is not just about physical interventions and how we do those hands-on approaches. It's absolutely about embedding the 95%, getting all of that stuff right. But then if we do have any of those risky behaviours, how do we keep everybody safe? So everything that we do is about maintaining safety of staff and the individuals that we support.
Yeah, and thank you so much for those tips. It really kind of summarized what we talked about in the episode. And just on that last tip, I think like I said in that segment, though, there's something about doing the training that just instilling that confidence and competence. That's Amanda's new catchphrase. Um, we actually do reduce incidences. Like, there's loads of evidence that suggests that and supports that. So I think that, yeah, for me, is a really big takeaway from today's episode. But thank you so much, Amanda, for your time. I know we've got a bit of time difference and you're right at the end of your day now. So I hope you have a really nice evening, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to the Team Teach podcast. It's been great to have you here with us as we discuss behaviour, communication, and the ways we can best support those in our care. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.